Well, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our simulation webinar. This morning we will explore the topic of enhancing aviation simulation following the 2019-20 bushfire season. My name is Assistant Commissioner Ben Millington from the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, and I'm delighted to again be your host for the webinar this morning. Can I first start by acknowledging that I'm hosting this event from the lands of the Wongal people here in Sydney. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all join us from today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in today's event. I also pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters across Australia. I'll introduce our speakers shortly, but before I do, I'd like to provide you with some brief housekeeping notes. As you're aware, today's event will be recorded and made available following the event. We'll also be using the Q&A feature on Zoom to take questions, so please post your questions in the Q&A box and not the chat window. You'll be able to upvote questions by clicking the thumbs up button, and I'll also do my best to ask a number of these to our speakers following the presentation. I also encourage you to use the chat window to share any thoughts or reflections during the presentations. And just a reminder that you'll also need to select all panelists and attendees in the drop-down menu for everyone attending to view your messages as you post them. I'd also like you to remind you to show respect and be respectful to each other throughout the presentation and to our presenters when posting your comments and questions. So with the housekeeping out of the way, please join me in welcoming our first speakers, or our speakers for today, my colleagues, Inspector Bernie O'Rourke and Michelle Jenkins. Inspector O'Rourke has over 20 years experience within the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, including 11 years in the aviation team as an air attack supervisor and as part of the aviation training team. He's also worked in the broader learning and development section on various firefighting programs. He is now the supervisor within the aviation team and was responsible for overseeing the State Air Desk during the 2019-20 bushfires, which devastated large parts of New South Wales. Joining him is Michelle Jenkins. Michelle has been working with the Rural Fire Service now for over 4 years, on both as a secondment and now as a permanent staff member. She's been a volunteer with the New South Wales State Emergency Service for the past 29 years and was awarded the Emergency Service Medal in 2020. Michelle has been involved in aviation operations for the past 15 years and has been involved in many deployments to air bases right across the state, covering bushfires, floods and storms. So without further ado, I welcome both Michelle and Bernie and hand over to you for your presentation.
Well, thanks very much, Ben, and welcome to Dubbo, everybody. We're at our training academy in Dubbo for this presentation. Michelle and I, over the next half an hour or so, will take you through what we've been doing and what we're learning along the way through this process. And then we hope to then do a live demo. We plan to do a live demo as we walk around the simulator to show you how it's built, what's involved, and the system we use to run it. So, yeah, and certainly, yes, as Ben said, any questions, still certainly feed them through. So to get started, I guess simulation is not new to us. We've been using simulation through firefighting for many years. In the aviation space, we've been using it for many years. And some of the key things we're doing in the air attack space is using the sandpit training, map tables, and really using these tools to do that introduction around coordination and tactics and providing that environment without the pressure of real aircraft and real aircraft flying. So we have to pause the exercise, start to learn the pattern that we need to do in that environment. Next slide. For the Rural Fire Service too, we do a lot in the winch space. So over the years, we've been using the trailer, what we have here, a cabin trainer, and that's something that's been developed to really train that movement and that cabin management of the crews as they move their way to the door. In that simulator, they can hop out the door onto the wire, and of course, you're very close to the ground on a trailer, so you drop down maybe afoot. Growing from that, we've grew into the live hoist training simulators and the towers, and we have 4 of these across the state. So as you can see in the picture on the bottom left there, that's about a 10-metre platform. The build at the top is based on a BK, same sort of sizes, same door width. And again, they can do the cabin management there, open the door, slide out, and then put on the wire, drop to the ground. And we can also now do the twin winching and other things that we've enhanced along the way. And it's a good space to again practice techniques, try new things if we're doing some research into something. And it's really a growing space there too. So next slide. So after the 1920 bushfire season, naturally the New South Wales government held a bushfire inquiry to look at obviously a number of the issues across the fires and the lessons we can learn from that. Through this, they really looked at the aviation space, and they really identified that the aviation roles are really key to that space, and the importance of the training that goes with that to make sure people are current and competent, and to develop those skills and make sure that they're operating in a safe environment for not only themselves, the air crew, the people on the ground they're working around. So that was a really positive bit of feedback through that process. The training is delivered in New South Wales through interagency process through both New South Wales RFS and National Parks, and that was certainly a supported approach. But through this, I guess, looking at the total numbers, they really identified that we need to grow our numbers to provide better support for big seasons like that we had. So next slide. So the inquiry, one of the findings of the inquiry and recommendations was that we really enhance the use of simulation in training, and particularly in these roles, provide more opportunities for people to practice their skills, enhance their skills, and maintain that. As you can see, the recommendation came out there. So following that, the funding and the support has been given to us to build this simulator you can see behind us, and to develop further ones too. And with that is some resourcing too. So we've got some people now allocated to help us and help drive this and manage this capability into the future. New slide. Next slide. As part of this enhancement, the government is funding the development and the building of the Aviation Centre of Excellence. And this is a purpose-built building that's been put here at our academy to house 4 simulators, provide additional training rooms and additional accommodation space in the floor above the training space. So this is due to commence the build in January next year, and to be completed by September, October next year. Of course, we'll see how the weather affects us with any build we do. But this is a centre that we then available for interagency to come in and use the simulators to maintain and enhance those skills, as we've mentioned before. So next slide. So there's a mock-up of the design of it, and that's certainly a place as we look forward, people will be welcome to come and join us and do those training. So we anticipate all the initial training will be done there, as well as the enhancement and ongoing currency and so on, the training there. Next slide.
Okay. We'll talk about the Aviation Simulator project. So we have selected a solution by Virtual Simulation Systems. VSS physically built the simulator and uses Titan software to provide the virtual reality environment. It was actually installed in November 2020, and we did some upgrades in software and radio infrastructure that was completed in February 2021. We undertook some training. The system operator and scenario building training was finished in March 2021. And then we ran an air attack training course in June. From that course, we received a lot of feedback and obviously some lessons learned currently, which we're considering, but we're also in the process of developing a scenario framework and a scenario library for future training.
Next slide. Next slide.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we have selected a solution developed by Virtual Simulation Systems. VSS have built the physical simulator and uses a software simulation called Titan to provide the virtual reality environment. The physical simulator has been modelled off an AS350 Squirrel helicopter, in this case Firebird 200. And as part of that, Firebird 200 is, you can see it virtually internally as well as externally. And the simulator is adapted to focus more to the role of an air attack rather than actually a flight simulator.
So you can see in the images there, if you've ever seen a squirrel, the panels and things are all built and structured in the same way. And as you can see, the virtual image there of the environment too, the dashboard and the setup there is, again, exactly the same as our aircraft Firebird 200 with positions of radios, everything like that. So, next slide.
So to give an overview of the actual aviation simulator we have here, the simulation system consists of a cockpit and rear cabin known as the Complete Aircrew Training System, otherwise known as CATS. It also has an instructor operator system and as well as virtual reality headsets. It has two, a front seat and a back seat. The VR headsets allow for a virtual representation of the full aircraft and surrounding environment, and now enabling the operators to look in, out, around, up and down and around the aircraft. Everything is in sync. So if you reach out for the dashboard or for one of the handles on the side of the door, it's visually and physically there. The headset is not fully enclosed. It has a head-mounted display which sits just off the eye to reduce any motion sickness effects, and also allows for peripheral vision and access to the comms panel and kneeboard. The system is based on the real-world terrain with time and day weather conditions that have been built in. This also allows us to simulate a fire in any part of the world. There's a number of aircraft and firefighting aircraft that have been added to the aircraft library and are available for use within the scenarios. These consist of rotary aircraft seats and laps and different types of size rotaries from small, medium to large, which also includes a drop-in of water or retardant at different coverage levels. The Incident Command System, the ICS tab, has actually been developed to use the power of artificial intelligence to manage bombing aircraft, and they can hold them in holding patterns as well as bring them into a drop as required or as requested by the air attack supervisor. We've also installed a communications panel with real radios and ICS between the air attack and the pilot, being the computer console operator or the instructor. And VSS is continuing to develop the use of Titan, and we've seen some changes that make it easier for the operator to use, as well as improve the end user experience. Next slide. So by introducing and integrating the simulator, integrating simulator-based training into existing training and certification, we can undertake suitability assessments. We can also undertake initial training. We ensure regular competency, professional development, currency and reassessment activities. It also provides trainees with increased learning opportunities to practice and enhance their new skills. It also undertakes a review of a trainee's aptitude for airborne work. So airborne work is not suitable for everyone. So this also gives them that ability to be able to see how they might go in that environment. And also too, they can practice in different scenario settings as well as identify any gaps for further training opportunities. The training includes, but is not limited to, the integration of the role of the air attack with other roles, such as the air observer role, camera platform aircraft, as well as search and rescue aircraft. And the work done by the NAFC simulation project team and Dr. Peter Hayes, looking at the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other personal characteristics will certainly assist with developing suitable scenarios for work with the simulator.
And I guess it's envisaged that, well, I guess we know that the simulator supports and enhances that training, but there's nothing to take away from the real, using real aircraft. So, and this has been, I guess, broad discussion through all these webinars, is that it's an enhancement tool, providing more opportunities, but we still will always use real aircraft during the training and at certain points during your training and your life cycle through that process. Next slide. Now it's really good to have we've got all the really good tools here that can do so much, but really the building out of that scenario and that exercise is key to make, get the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So as part of this, we're developing our simulation kit or scenario pack that will consist of any relevant documentation around the incident. So if it's a map, an IAP around the scenario, there'll be notes for the participant or briefing notes so that they can conduct a briefing prior to the mission. The instructor has notes of things they're looking for. What is the outcome we're trying to achieve from this particular scenario? So we're not just flying around making up on the go, we're building a library of things to achieve set outcomes that we can really make sure we're getting the most out of it. And then we've also got some things to judge or gauge someone's competence against as well as we move through that process. So at this point, we'll put on a bit of pre-recorded video that we've put together with, now these views will give you the trainee view, so through the headset what the trainee's seeing. It will give you also the instructor view of the console and how they're controlling the aircraft and moving them around the environment. So this video will go about for 3 minutes. There's no audio, audio playing in it, so don't think there's something gone wrong. And then after that, we'll jump into the live demo as we'll walk around the simulator and then into showing you how we move aircraft around, which will be over the shoulder with the camera watching the screen. So certainly this video you see now will have a bit more clarity around those operations and might make more sense at the end. So we'll start the video. So we'll be happy to share the video after the event as well, so that people can see it if you're finding it a bit jittery due to the bandwidth you may have. Secure will obviously have the better quality video into the recording at the end as well. But here you can see the 50200 air attack looking out the window and looking at the aircraft dropping. And then shortly we'll jump into the view of the operator or what they're seeing in the airspace and coordinating those aircraft. And then down to the detail of touching aircraft and dropping on fire.
So Bernie, just as that vision showing, the first vision was what the air attack supervisor would be seeing while sitting in the simulator, and I take it this view here is the instructor view, how they would put the aircraft into the circuits and introduce additional aircraft for the air attack to guide. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Ben. So what you're seeing there is now the instructor view of the ICS panel left-hand side as they move the aircraft or point the aircraft into the fire and get them to do the drop. So you can see on the panel there, they're selecting the aircraft, putting on the line, and then telling it where to drop, dropping through some waypoints or moving the aircraft around as required.
Great, and I think following this pre-record, you're going to give us a live demonstration of the system as well. So I think everyone online is looking forward to that.
Yep, that's right. So as soon as it wraps up, we'll jump across, and I've got the team here ready to give you one through.
Okay, we'll go through a live demonstration now. We've got Jason here, an air attack supervisor, who's going to run through a scenario for us. So welcome, Jason. Thank you for coming to our stage and run through the scenario. So Jason's just going to fit the headset on. So as I mentioned earlier, it is it's not an enclosed headset, and it has a head-mounted display where you can actually it sits just off the eye, and you can adjust it to suit your vision. So you can wear it with or without glasses if you do wear glasses, with or without glasses, and you can adjust the little dials underneath to correct the vision. Okay, thank you, Jason. So as we move around the aircraft, as I mentioned earlier, it is an AS350 Squirrel helicopter designed off Firebird 200. As you saw in the demonstration, we have the dashboard here. As you can see here, it's actually blacked out, but through the headset, it will actually display. We also have the comms panel, which also allows for, with the head-mounted display with your peripheral vision, to actually touch down onto the comms panel and change channels as required. Okay, just moving into now the back seat, we have a second headset in the back seat, so we can have a second air attack or a trainee air attack within the aircraft. Moving down towards the rear of the simulator itself, we actually have some TV screens that are built in. So if we have some additional people, so some observers or some trainees, they can sort of stand off from afar. And this actually mirrors what the front headset is actually seeing. So in this case, Jason's travelling to a fire, and what you're seeing is what he's actually seeing through the headset. So we'll move around the back to the actual console operator. Okay, so here we have at the moment, we have Cameron on the as the console operator. He's currently manoeuvring aircraft around, so he's actually talking with Jason, the air attack. So Cameron's actually acting as the Firebird 200 pilot at the moment. So we have a helicopter in there buffeting. And through the ICS panel that you see on the left-hand side, we can move aircraft in and out of a drop. We can allocate them to a water source to refill their buckets. And we can also assign other aircraft to a stack as well. So they might to a stack so they can circuit the fire and be called in as required. They can sit at different altitudes and they can come in at a drop speed as required for the type of aircraft. And then you can also control the coverage level. As you'll see just to the left of this computer screen, we have two other screens available. The top screen here is the backseat headset, so that mirrors the backseat headset. So the console operator has good view viewing, managing the ICS system, being able to see what the front headset is seeing as well as the back headset, as well as we can have a second console operator available. So here we have a helicopter sitting over the dip at the moment. So Cameron's just moving some of the helicopters out of the way. I believe there's some fixed wing aircraft that are coming in at the moment, as requested by the air attack supervisor. Okay, so the helicopters just been moved off the dip and they're holding off to the side to allow the fixed wing aircraft to come in. As you will see in the distance, you can see one of the fixed wing aircraft coming in. So that was the seat dropping over the fire.
Bird dog 279 is 3 miles.
Okay, so the console operator and the air attacker are now calling in for the bird dog and the latch. So they will, so you can see them coming in on the screen, and you'll see them drop very shortly. There we go. So that's now completed their drop. Okay. Okay, so we'll end the live demonstration of the scenario there. So we might hand back to yourself, Ben, if that's okay, to start going through some Q&A.
Thanks, Michelle. And we might just wait for Bernie and yourself to get back to a position where you can answer some of those questions. But thanks very much to the team there that assisted in providing that demonstration. Just a reminder, please don't forget to enter your questions into the Q&A chat box, and we'll certainly pose those to Michelle and Bernie once they get back to their desks. There are a number of questions there already. So once Bernie and Michelle, there they are, back up on screen, we can now turn to those questions and work through those. So the first one there is from Mark Crisp, Bernie and Michelle, and it's just noted there that as an air attack, when it gets busy, obviously there's a lot of bounce around with the pilot and they share the workload. Are we able to use CRM with the pilot during simulation? Is that something that's been considered?
Yes, I guess from the work we've done so far, we can. It certainly forms up some of the principles you can form up in this. And I think there's more development in that space to do as we refine and develop scenarios to really focus on that. So, yeah, but there's certainly opportunities in that space to, make sure that, because as Marcus points out, it's a key part of the role is that CRM.
Great, thank you. There's an anonymous question there. How do you find the VR with people who have to wear corrective lenses and glasses? And Michelle, you're probably best to answer that.
Yes, look, I have no problem whatsoever. You can adjust with the head-mounted display. It is on a sliding scale as well. So obviously, the head-mounted display isn't so close to my eyes, but with my glasses on, by moving the slider down and adjusting it, it sits just off the glasses. So, and then I can adjust the dials underneath. So it works perfectly.
Great, thank you. Next question is from Sean Lund. How do you deal with the interaction between the air attack trainee and pilots with the VR goggles?
So the pilot and the trainee are on comms. So they don't get that visual link, but they do get the comms. They are talking. One of the examples we saw yesterday doing some work was the crew said, well, really tested them and actually have really good explanations and defining what they were saying rather than just pointing at the time. But even if you do point, the instructor or the operator can see where you're pointing because they're sitting behind you to the side. So they do get an idea what you're looking at. So it is a balancing act there, I guess. And that's where we'll look at what we do in the future as well with the growth in simulations. And we may move to some other sims that maybe don't have VR sets, maybe they have screens. So it certainly has its place, with the dashboard and things like that. But there is some little things to learn around that too and how we can best work that.
Thank you. From Dwayne Sinclair over in Canada, welcome and thanks for joining us. Dwayne's question is that they're obviously exploring their own sim for aviation training in Canada. There's a question around the Titan software, whether it's compatible with air tanker service providers or others within Australia and internationally. So I'm not sure whether you're able to answer that question or that's something that might need to go back to the supplier.
Look, I think probably the supplier can answer that better, but I guess what we know, Titan is not a flight simulation software. It is a broad simulation package. So depending what you're after, but certainly I'm sure the team of VSS will be able to explain that and provide you the detail on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another one from Mark Crisp. When dealing with a dozen or so aircraft the windscreen of the aircraft is a good noteboard for tracking aircraft or notes on your kneeboard. Has that been given some consideration as part of this simulation setup?
Yeah, certainly. So the with the head mount display off your eyes, you certainly can see your kneeboard or an iPad. So if you make notes or the call signs, I guess is your like common ones you'll be looking at, you can see that out of your peripheral vision. And then that gives you that. I guess the challenge with something like an iPad and those things is linking that simulated environment to a real map. There's a bit more challenge there to do that, where it won't. The benefits of flying around with aircraft with GPS tracking and things, it's moving you around. At this stage, we don't have that, so you can use a map and you can zoom in and out as needed. But yeah, there's certainly some opportunities to grow in that space and link it up a bit more.
But it certainly does allow you, with the head-mounted display, certainly off your eyes, to have that peripheral vision, so you can actually look down and look at the comms panel and change channels as required, as well as record notes on your kneeboard.
Great, thank you. Another anonymous question there. Is there a network capability? For example, could multiple sims from different states or agency fly together from various locations using this simulator?
So from talking to the team at VSS, yes, and if we have multiple in the same building, we certainly can do it. And it's just networking. So as long as you get the link between the sites that's solid enough to do it, yes, you can. I guess you can't really at the moment link to other flight sim products. I guess you'd have to be the same product.
Okay, so the centre that you're building at Dubbo with the 4 simulators, I think you said, are being installed. So you'll be able to network, for want of a better word, those 4 simulators.
Certainly, and there's an opportunity in that space too to have, so you got fixed wing rotary. If we were to have a winch sim going, that could be in the environment. Even somebody standing on the ground under VR goggles could be added to be directing the aircraft as a crew leader or a divcom on the ground.
Okay, great, thank you. A question there from Rory Clifford. Do you plan to integrate any motion feedback or vibro tactile feedback? And if you're not planning on that, why not?
So I guess probably not at the moment, because I think what we're finding is the goals gives you enough motion to do that. And look, it's certainly an opportunity to do that with other simulation tools. But we do find most people, you do find you're actually still leaning when things are turning just because of the visualization to do that.
Great, thank you. A question there from our friend Ivan Perkins. With the console operator taking on the roles of all the pilots, do you find that the workload on the console operator can slow the operation? And is there any consideration of adding additional operators?
Yeah, so initially at first, we thought the console operator was able to sort of manage that. But as the scenarios get more complex and you have more aircraft allocated to the scenario, we have included that second computer for an additional operator there to manage other aircraft, as well as when we're running training, we'll have the instructor here in the room as well, so they can also be more so talking as the other aircraft pilots direct to the air attack, while the console operator actually manages the movement of the aircraft through the ICS system.
Probably like what I know in our space, I'm sure we have done before with incident management exercises, you may have some divcoms in another room on radios feeding that in and being that activation cell. There's still an element of that here, and depending on the complexity of the scenario would depend how many people you may want to add that role in to.
And with the access to portable radios, as well as we were demonstrating yesterday, with the comms panel, you can switch between the 2 panels as well. So if you're talking to other aircraft or ground crews, and you can switch in between, and then we can have those people out in different offices or different rooms. Okay,
thank you. A question there, are you able to influence the fire behaviour, and does it react to the tactics being used? How does the host person find acting as all the other pilots having to communicate with the air attack supervisor, observer, as all of these people? So it probably goes into that last question as well from Ivan, but I guess more importantly, are you able to influence the weather and fire behaviour, and does the tactics being used react to that?
Yeah, most certainly you can. So you can change the weather. You can have you can add in rain, fog, you can add snow in if you wanted to. But you can actually change wind direction as well. So if there is a wind change headed that way, you can actually affect the wind change, and it actually takes effect, and you can actually see within the environment itself that the trees actually start moving. So
I think you do see the smoke, with the wind change, the smoke starts moving to give you that visual indication. The fire, I think, was mentioned in that question too.
yes.
You can add more fire in along the way, so if you need to progress it, but it does actually go out when
Yes.
when you get a hit.
Yeah, so if you do a direct hit, or you do it's a good lineup hit, it will actually put the fire out.
Right.
And as I was going to say earlier, so I lost my train of thought, you can have multiple fires. You can set up multiple fires, or you can have them start small, and you can say 2 small fires that start to spot, and then you create 5 larger fires. You can also have them expand over a period of time, and then with wind as well, it actually moves that fire along. But yeah, if you do a direct hit and you get it, then it puts it out. But
That's great. Okay, I think that answers that one. There's a question there from Chris Banfi, who says, as an air attack supervisor, we're integrated with ground operations. Does the simulator include ground communication input requests that we can deal with on an hour-to-hour basis on a fire ground?
Yes, because we can simulate that through either someone acting in that role through a radio and being that ground controller, or that incident controller, or DivCom, whatever that role may be as part of that scenario. So certainly have that influence. And in future expansions, we may be able to put someone on the ground in the VR environment to be seeing what the aircraft's doing and seeing those drops from the ground point of view.
so even from an initial air attack response heading to a fire, we can actually integrate fire trucks and personnel on the ground that they can actually see, so they can have that direct. So in our briefings, as part of the package library, is identify what the ground channels are. So if they look out and down and see there's ground crews there, they can switch channels and talk to the ground crews. So they'll see that in a live environment.
Right, thank you. 2 questions from David Mabry, so I'll just work through those. Can the simulation insert airborne fire debris to change approach paths to protect the aircraft crews? That's the first question. Can the simulation insert airborne fire debris to change the approach paths?
Probably doesn't right at the moment. We certainly can have things in the weather environment, so that's certainly maybe an add-on in the future about debris coming up. From an approach path point of view, certainly you can control that, and or the operator will control it as a pilot. If they see things, you can bring it around to the left a bit further, or provide that direction to move that path they're doing. So that's certainly an opportunity.
Okay, thank you. And the second question from David is the resolution and update rate of the video sufficient to avoid motion sickness? And in your use so far, have any of the trainees experienced motion sickness?
So one of the values, I guess, and this is from VSS, is by not having fully enclosed headsets, you're still getting that peripheral vision that helps manage the motion sickness issues. So we haven't experienced any motion sickness yet. We have found people sometimes take a little while to get used to that environment and that the headsets. We do find the room, turn the lights off in the room sometimes makes it easy. You can reduce that peripheral, or the things that are in your peripheral vision a bit from outside the aircraft. But I don't think,
No, if anything, probably after a prolonged period of time through the headset, there is a slight fatigue that's been done. So, but generally you've got to land to refuel anyway. So you need to, you do have that break. So we do stop it at that time to allow people to sort of reset and rehash and re-go through the scenarios again.
The headset is, from a resolution point of view, is 2K in each eye, so very high quality resolution in the head-mount display.
Okay, thank you. From Matt, would you be able to use an analysis of an event tracking data to inform simulation scenarios and their likely impacts of the fire?
Probably need to go back to VSS on that one. Certainly the system can take a lot of inputs, external inputs, and overlay that into the environment. So there may be opportunities in that space, but it's certainly not a a fire behaviour tool. It's not doing predictions like that, but certainly positioning fire in places and doing things. Look, there may be opportunity there too, but probably more questions for the VSS in that regard.
Right, and I think this is probably a follow-on question from that, very similar. Does the system integrate with any mapping software or an EFB?
We're not currently doing that at the moment. Again, I'll have to go back to VSS to clarify that. I think they've been doing some other stuff in other spaces that may have some links into that, into the mapping tools and so on. So it would be a question we've got to go back to them on at the moment.
Right, thank you. There's a couple of questions there just around costs and some information around software and hardware. And I think if people wanted further information in relation to that, they could contact you or Michelle direct if that was the case, Bernie, for further information.
So certainly the team at VSS have taken this to the helicopter conference in Brisbane last year. There was a lot of interest in just the build of it as well, to look at other companies integrating that into their other simulation software too. So for I guess that flight sim environment for pilots more so, but yeah, certainly we can share some of that.
Right, and I guess in terms of the aviation centre you're building at Dubbo, you know, I think you mentioned there's 4 simulators being installed. Are they all going to be what you've demonstrated today, or are you still looking at what other options are available for the others?
Yeah, we're still looking at other options at this stage.
Yeah, so I guess one of the key things for us is move to a fixed wing as well. So have a fixed wing simulator to look at that. Look at maybe using wraparound screens of some type or a dome or whatever the technology is to change my VR. So we have, I guess, options in our suite of tools there. Look, there's certainly a discussion, do we get another squirrel as well? Because air attack obviously is one of the main roles we want to train to.
Okay, I think everyone will be interested. You've got this one up and running. I think everyone will be interested to know, you know, what the other 3 will be, and no doubt you'll share that. We've got a last minute question in there from Matt Harris. In your scenarios, do you already or have you considered the role of airbase managers in terms of flight following, communications, etc., to interact with the air attack supervisor who are obviously overhead the incident?
Yeah, we certainly have thought of that, and certainly adding in an ARO or an ABM role to do that flight following is very important, because there's a lot of stuff that the air attack needs to do, and part of that is maintain flight following for the aircraft. So yeah, certainly we will be integrating that, but at the moment we're just getting some people used to the simulator, the scenarios, and then as we start to further develop our library of scenarios in a package of documentation, it will have all of that information in the airbase briefing, and we'll integrate all of that ARO stuff in there for flight following. Yes.
Okay. Again, another question there from Dwayne in Canada. He's just asked, unsure if the paid air tanker service provider can tie into the sim you've demonstrated, if they're also using sim training for their air tanker pilots, to have their pilots fly, you know, with a New South Wales air attack supervisor in various scenarios.
Yeah, that's probably something we need to do further research on that. Probably can't answer that one ourselves at the moment. We're still learning a lot here as we develop this and more questions come up, and looking for opportunities.
Right, and I'm sure if Dwayne or other people have questions, they can contact you or want to talk to you direct. You'd be happy to take those emails following the session, no doubt.
Certainly.
Right, well, I think there's no other questions that have come through. So I guess we've answered those. So look, I think that's probably all we have time for today. So on behalf of those online and those that view the webinar going forward, I'd like to thank both yourself, Bernie, and Michelle for making the time to speak with us today. For those that joined you as part of the demonstration, it certainly provided us with a lot to think about and go back and discuss our capabilities in our jurisdiction. So on behalf of both NAFC and AFAC, thank you both for joining us today. For For those online, when you exit today's Zoom session, you'll be asked to complete a short survey. AFAC and NAFC will use this information to ensure our professional development programs continue to meet your needs. So please get online and complete that survey. I'd also like to extend my thanks to Charlotte, Greg and Nicola for their continued support and efforts in arranging these webinars. They've done a great job at NAFC, and all of the webinars so far this year have received some very positive feedback. So Charlotte, Greg and Nicola, thank you from everyone online and from those that have viewed the webinars throughout the year. Your support is very much appreciated. It's been my pleasure to host you today. Until next time, stay safe, and no doubt we probably won't speak to you. So have a very Merry Christmas and safe New Year, and I look forward to hosting the next webinar in the new year. So on behalf of the NAFC team, thank you and have a great day.